everyone. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, November 19th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Julio Vincent Gambuto is the author of the new book, Please Unsubscribe, Thanks, How to Take Back Our Time, Attention, and Purpose in a Relentless World. His book engages readers in an eye-opening conversation about work that will change your perspective. Julio joins me now to discuss his work. Julio, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into the book, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. You have like a really interesting background. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background in media and all the work that you've done over this time?
Sure, I'm an author and a movie maker. I started out really as a writer, and then went back to film school when I was in my 30s, and worked in TV and children's television, and then moved over to working in independent film. And then the pandemic hit, and life got turned upside down, and I wrote my first book, which came out, the paperback just came out this August. So.
Now, can you tell us, when did you know you wanted to become an author, and kind of tell a story off the screen?
I've always been a writer, so as a kid, that's just kind of the way I processed the world, and other kids were playing baseball, and I was taking notes, and kind of just had my notebook out all the time, and that was the way I kind of learned how to express myself. So I've always wanted to write a book. I'm not sure I thought I would write this book first, but I've always wanted to put pen to paper that way.
Now, what I love about your story, just your overall background, is that you kind of emphasize writing in the world of making movies, where some people think the first thing you do is pick up a camera. I like that you kind of were like, hey, let me pick up a pen and paper. Can you talk about, kind of how those two mediums, like writing and making movies, kind of go hand in hand?
Totally. It's funny because in film school, you have all these directors who came from the camera side, and then you had a few of us who came from the theater side or from the writing side, and we helped each other out through film school because, those folks would say, hey, I don't know how to run an audition. And I would say, I don't know how to turn the camera on. So, but I come at it from a story perspective. I think storytelling is so important and so powerful. And so I consider myself a writer, and I've had the chance to write for television and to write for films and direct them and to write books. And so the sort of common denominator for me is always, what is the story? How do you tell the story? How do you tell it well? Whether it's in a 250-page book or an hour and a half on screen.
Now, I definitely want to get into this story. Please unsubscribe. Thanks. Can you tell me, what inspired you to create this, and how did the pandemic kind of influence it?
Well, the pandemic was a doozy, as we all know, and I found myself locked at home in an apartment in Manhattan for about 6 months straight. And it was a moment where my life just ground to a halt. I was just constantly going. My life was always on the go, on the move. The ringing and the pinging and the dinging were sort of always happening. And the pandemic was really the first time I found myself embracing the calm and embracing the quiet and kind of just leaning into that moment. And I think it revealed a lot about life and maybe what life was full of and what life was missing, and it called on me to kind of make some hard decisions about what to take out of life and sort of, in this parlance, like unsubscribe from.
Now, what I like about the title Unsubscribe is, like, when I think of the pandemic, I think about how everyone was subscribing to, like, everything.
Totally.
Can you explain, what that title kind of means to you? Like, what does it mean to unsubscribe?
Well, I really started exactly where you would think, right? Like in my inbox, subscription emails, like I just got rid of all of them one day. I unsubscribed from everything that was flooding my inbox. And that kind of kicked off this process of really understanding that, I can disconnect from a lot more than just email. I can limit what's on my phone. I can limit how much TV I'm watching. I can limit who's in my life, what my social networks look like online and offline. And that kind of led to an even deeper analysis of like, I could actually change and limit my own behavior and my own thought processes about all sorts of things that were in my life. Success, money, love, all the things that are really important. The whole process sort of called on me to reevaluate.
Now, I want to talk about the idea of the ultimate gaslighting. I know this is a word that a lot of people use, and I feel like it's something that I would say maybe within the last 10 years people have been using a lot. But I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, what does that concept mean to you?
So during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, sort of about a month into it, I wrote this essay on medium.com called called Prepare for the Ultimate Gaslighting. And it got a very large response online. And it was really about the moment that we were in and my concern that there was going to be this huge pressure to go back to normal, whether normal was like 3 weeks later or a year later or 3 years later. There was going to be this real drive from big business and from government to say, hey, we've got to get back to the treadmill. We've got to get back to you being stressed out. We've got to get back to overconsumption, buys, click, click, click. And I really thought and had genuine concerns that that process would be manipulative. And so gaslighting to me was the term to use for kind of creating a reality where, we had just lost 1 million people, 1 million people. And now we were being asked to go buy a new SUV, And so I sort of felt like that disconnect was about to happen in a big way. And I think it did happen in a big way. So that's what the essay was about. And so I wasn't entirely comfortable using the word, but I think it was really appropriate.
And now that it's been, 4 years, we're going to be coming up on 5 years, from the time you wrote that, how will you say things have evolved since then, and has your ideas about it changed?
Yeah, they go up and down, and I think through all the chapters that we've been through in the last 5 years, which has felt like 20, I've certainly thought through those moments through the lens of the essay. But I think, what we've sort of seen, even with this election, if you will, is that we've forgotten or been asked to forget what happened in 2020, whether it be the pandemic or whether it be the social reckoning that we saw in the summer of 2020. So, people have genuine concerns about this moment right now, and plenty of people are saying, hey, that's in the past, and that's legit. But I think that there has been a real pressure to kind of forget how bad it was, and perhaps to not remember the lessons that we learned. So I wanted to chronicle the lessons. I wanted to put the lessons down on paper for myself and for anybody who kind of wanted the opportunity or to take the opportunity to relearn them and to kind of step back.
Now, what are some practical steps readers can take to unsubscribe from the aspects of life that no longer serve them? And I will say that this is something that myself, I know a lot of people were like, I'm deleting Instagram, or, we do all these things, but then we kind of go back. What are some steps that people,
right back in.
yeah, what can people do to ensure that they're actually committing to that?
Well, look, there's plenty of tips I can give. The book has got about 100 plus practical and tactical strategies, right? For example, I limit my social media to just my laptop, not my phone. I only have 10 apps on my phone. That's my personal limit. I make sure that I have an unsubscribe day once a week or once every 2 weeks where I really don't take the phone out of the house. I don't have it attached to my hip. There's a lot of things that you can do, but I think that the really important thing is the thinking behind it, right? In any given situation, to ask yourself, how can I slow this down and how can I put limits back in? Because that's really what's happened in the last 20 years is we have sped it all up. It's all gotten really, really fast. The economy is fast and the computers are fast and everything is fast. And also we've taken limits away. We've taken boundaries away. We've sort of eroded all of the social fabric that keeps things human and keeps things connected. So in any situation, whether it's parenting a child or buying something at the store or being online, how can we slow it down a little bit? And how can we put limits back in? Those are really important ways, I think, at least, to think about how we lead our lives day to day.
Now, I'm also really shocked to hear that you can do something like this with your career, because I know a lot of people, once they have a book or they work in TV, they're constantly always online. How do you make it work for you?
So I have really scheduled time in my calendar for social media and for promotion, and I'm hard when I'm like in there, right? I go hard in those 2 periods in my calendar, but then I really try to step back and not engage all the time. I think this idea of us always being on is really dangerous for us and for our mental health and sometimes for our physical health. And so, but I would be lying if I didn't say it was difficult to promote a book and at the same time, tell people, maybe it's time to step back a little bit.
Now, how do you balance humor with serious topics in your writing? Because I know these are the ideas or just the thoughts that give people, almost a crisis. So how do you handle that with humor and kind of lighten the mood a little bit?
That's a good question. My mom, when I was a kid, used to say, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. And what she meant by that was like, life is really hard and you kind of have to find the moments of humor and joy and break the tension. So I, as best as I can, I use humor in my writing and in my screen work to break the tension, to lighten the mood, to always kind of follow a really intense passage or scene or moment with something lighter so that people kind of get a break from how heavy things can be. And I think we've been in a really heavy period in the world in the last 5 years. So I think humor is so much more important than it's ever been.
Now, what do you hope readers take away from your book in terms of personal or societal change?
I hope people can use it as an opportunity to step back, to just kind of question what we're being asked to do all day long, how much time we're being asked to spend on our phones, on our screens, how much we're being asked to buy, and just take a beat and get a little bit more conscious about where we put our time, where we put our money, where we put our attention. I think if readers can use the book as a way to make life a little bit better, that would certainly make me happy and proud. So.
Now, are there any upcoming projects or new books in the works?
Sure. So yeah, I'm speaking at South by Southwest in March.
Congrats.
Thank you. So I'm very excited about that. And then I'm working on a stage presentation of the book. So sort of, if you will, like a one-man show type of event to sort of talk more about the themes of the book in a way that's humorous and entertaining and also, serious and meaningful. So.
Now, where can people go to find the book, to support, and to maybe change your life?
So go to juliovincent.com. Where's the camera? juliovincent.com, Julio Vincent.com. That's my website, and all of my projects are there, and you can link to the book. But it's sold everywhere. It was just the pick of the month at Barnes & Noble, and so
Wow.
it's had a really great run for the last few months, and I hope it'll keep going. So.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. I think no matter where you are, your background, age, I feel like it's something that we could all connect to and learn from. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
To learn more about the book and other work that Julio does, please go to his website, juliovincent.com. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.